first one was such a phenomenal hit, to follow it up. But
Yeah.
you took your time and it paid off.
Yeah, a little bit of pressure, for sure. I mean, everybody, including myself, loved that first film.
Yeah.
And it means a lot to a lot of people. And, whenever we do any story at Pixar, you want to make sure you're doing it for a good reason. And with this one, we wanted to make sure that we would never do another story unless we knew there was something with talent, another story. And so that's kind of what Pete Docter directed the original film. He's our chief creative officer. He's the one that came to me and said, like, I think there might be something there. I think we should, there might be another story to tell.
And how long ago was that?
That was, I started in January of 2020.
Okay.
So it's been 4 years. These movies take, like, sometimes the average is 5. It's 5 years. So I was cruising in 4 years, but slow down. But 4 years, and so, and when I started, it was, pre-pandemic. And at that time, I thought about, like, what could we do? I knew I wanted new emotions to show up. And I made a list of what we could do, and anxiety was on that list pretty early on. Maybe it's because I was feeling it a little bit myself. The pressure you're talking about, a little bit, yeah, a little bit of that. But at the time, I was looking at not only what I was feeling, but I was like, what are teenagers going through now? And when I was doing the research, anxiety was on the rise in teens at that time, especially teen girls, and that was pre-pandemic. It was already, and so I pitched out, like, I think this could be a story here, and we felt like there was something to tell, and then we went into the pandemic, and everything got better. But it went on, it was already a problem in teens, and it rose not only in teens, even more so, but in kids and adults too.
And you each play characters that I think we're all very familiar with, joy, fear, and nostalgia. I'm sort of curious what your character meant to you personally, and how do you prepare to play an emotion like this? Like, Tony, would you go home really upset?
Kelsey just made me really upset. No, oh man. I remember coming in and my first question was the difference between fear and anxiety, because just to kind of like, I didn't know how they were going to frame that. And immediately they were like, well, fear is what's in front of you, and then anxiety is what could be in front of you, kind of living in the what if. And as a person who dealt with both, that was very, very clear. And I mean, like, for instance, that sarcasm bit, which I just think is one of my favorite bits. And it's happening before fear, so he's not losing his mind. But just the brilliance of them coming up with, like, a sarcasm, they scream and it's interpreted differently. It was just so many of those things. I was just like a playland to be a part of.
That was really fun to record, because we do like, okay, this is the earnest take. And then, okay, now do it sarcastic. Yeah, sarcastic as you can do it.
So fun.
And I mean, you're so associated with the original Inside Out and your character. Again, I think it had to be something really special for you to come back.
Oh no, I would have come back for any reason. I don't really care about the story and stuff. Yeah. No, absolutely, yes. And the most wonderful thing is to play a character that has such an incredible arc. In the second film, Joy goes through a lot and changes a lot. And I think one of the more beautiful moments in the very beginning of the film is Joy takes sadness with her and says, wherever I go, you go. Which not only is beautiful, but a real nod to the first film, which is that Joy has learned something along the way. So when we were talking about the character, very rarely do you get to have an animated character with such depth and such a story and such an arc. So it was a wonderful acting challenge to play her, and continues to be an incredible blessing to play her.
I mean, one of my favorite scenes is where Joy totally loses it and she's not able to keep it together anymore. I'd love to know what it's like to perform that scene, and also this message that not even joy can be joyful all the time.
Yes, right. It's like everyone has a breaking point, and it's okay to not be able to handle the weight. We talked a lot about toxic positivity and how women especially are told to kind of grin and bear it, and then when you do break, it can come out in all sorts of ways. And it was really fun to do that scene, not only because I love being angry, it's probably my most accessible emotion, but I love that joy got to be, and that anger in that moment gets to be tender, and it kind of reminds you when you allow yourself to feel your feelings, you're also creating an opportunity of intimacy with other people, and in this case, the other emotions in your head.
And June, as the new kid to this movie, Riley's experiencing nostalgia. Were you familiar, a fan of the first movie? When they came to you?
Yes. No, I loved the first movie. I saw it. Yeah.
And when they said nostalgia, did you just think you knew exactly what that was and how to portray
Yes,
it?
and I really was so excited to do it. I
Yeah.
really was. I love her. And I love the way she looks, which sort of came afterwards. I love that, the pink glasses.
Oh, yeah, the rose-colored glasses, yeah.
I love that.
Well, I actually wondered if she was modeled all on June, because there is like a little bit of resemblance.
Yeah, there is a little bit. Yeah, that was never intended, but you're perfect for the role.
It's the cheeks.
Yeah. You've been doing this for so many years, but what is it like to have a whole new fan base of kids? I'll just tell you all, if you've seen the movie Blitz, the little 11-year-old actor who stars in that, Elliot Heffernan, was not impressed when he met Saoirse Ronan for that movie, but when he met June, he was like dumbstruck because she was in Inside Out too.
You remember nostalgia. I was so thrilled.
Oh no, he was totally, his
Yeah.
whole demeanor changed. He's like, you're nostalgia. But you probably get that a lot now.
Yes, a little girl came up to me in an office and started reciting my lines. Seriously, she knew every line of nostalgia.
Did she do anything from Thelma? Because
Pardon?
did she do any lines from Thelma?
No, no, no.
Yeah, probably not. That's probably not a good idea. You know, I mentioned you had a lot of pressure to live up to the first film, but I actually really love this film just as much, if not more. And it is not only the highest grossing Pixar film of all time, but the highest grossing animated film of all time globally. I know.
I know, when you make these movies, you're always hoping for the best, and the part that I'm most proud of, you want to make something that's going to have an impact out there in the world, and especially with the Inside Out, working in this world, you can do a lot of good out there. In the first film, I think that's why Pete came to me and said, I think we should think about doing another thing there, because people continuously kept coming up to him and telling him how much it meant to them.
Yeah.
And it just, he's like, wow, this has been many, many years. And so it got him thinking. And also Amy texting, Pete, let's take
Yeah,
another
just
one.
every day.
That helped too. That really helped too. But I think the part that's really moved me is obviously I wanted to do well. One, I want the movie to do well. I also want us to go. It's just so awesome to be sitting here in a theater. This is one of my favorite places in the world, is the movie theater. And so to get people to go out, I was excited about that.
Yeah.
The people went to the theaters, and but ultimately, it's the impact that people have had on the film. Who have come up to me and said what it's meant to me. Has meant the world, and to have it do so well all over the world has just been a gift. And I think it's what speaks to this movie. It's all about our emotions. We all have them, no matter where you are.
I'm curious for the actors, do you have any theories as to, why the audiences have embraced this movie as much as they did?
Well, I'm like Kelsey, so thrilled because it does feel like it's crossed, cultural lines and language barriers, and it feels so big. And it's such a big movie, and it's so good, which is very rare, truly. So it's this giant commercial success, but it's this unicorn of a film. It's deeply moving, beautifully creative, very funny. Even just making a funny animated movie, as we all know, is so difficult. So to make one that everybody goes to see and it's good. I just think, I don't think that comes around a lot. by far the best film of 2024.
Speaking for my, I was thinking, for myself, as I'm watching it, there's like a lot of emotions in my life that, or growing up, that I never kind of allowed myself to feel, or kind of like the bad emotions. And just, I'm watching this, like, if I had this as a kid, giving permission to those emotions. We were talking earlier about, anxiety, looking at joy and saying, hey, like, they're working together. And I was always like, no, this goes in that section, this goes in, and I can live this up front. When in actuality, it's like they're all invited to the table. I mean, what a gift to like this generation.
Jude, any theories?
Well, I think that I kept thinking after I saw it that I can remember when I was a young girl, or about the age, and how difficult life was.
Yeah.
I mean, everything was so important. Everything had to be done a certain way and all this, and I fought that anyway. And just to see something where it's all right, you can feel whatever you care, it doesn't matter, just feel it, and that's great.
And so I'm only laughing a little because when you said when I was a young girl, I was like, she just became nostalgia in front of us.
I remember when she was a young girl.
Also, we are of the age where, anxiety was not spoken of very often, and, when you had a stomach ache on your way to school, it was just a stomach ache.
Yeah. I don't think I learned the word anxiety until my 20s.
Yeah, I don't think I did either.
Wow. You kind of touched on this, but the 4 new emotions that you chose to introduce, can you sort of discuss why those 4?
Yeah, anxiety was always kind of
Yeah.
part of the list, and like, well, who else should show up with her? And I had a lot in the beginning. I had 9 new emotions show up. I did it because I wanted to overwhelm Joy, because that's how I can kind of feel when you're, it's a parental kind of relationship that Joy has with Riley. Kind of calls her. She calls Riley our girl, and all the emotions coming out. They're all there to protect and take care of Riley. And but I had a lot show up, and I overwhelmed not only Joy but the audience. And anxiety got lost in the crowd, and they're like, "You have to simplify." That was the first note I got on our first screening. So like, well, which ones need to stay? And so I looked at we had a lot of experts on the show.
I saw all the doctors.
Yeah, Dr. Keltner was a big one. He was on the original film, and I brought him in, and I'm like, which emotions drive at this age? And he's like, it's all the self-conscious ones. I'm like, I totally know what you're talking about. At that age is when you start to become incredibly self-conscious, and you start to compare yourself to others. And as a kid, I didn't really do that, but as I could see that, you kind of, you feel like you come up short. And so the ones that stayed are the ones that are doing that, like envy is a great example of that. It's all about the feeling that you wish you had what others had. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I had this big time when I was this age, and embarrassment is a big time. I've got 2 kids, like they're 13 and 14 when I started this movie. It's a lot of embarrassment going on in my house, and ennui for sure. There's a lot of do I have to? So ennui is definitely. So it was all the emotions that were present at this age in order to tell the story.
So did you had scripted other emotions and actually?
We do so many versions, you guys you've been on the ride a lot. We do so many scenes that that end up they're not in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's 4 years.
Sure.
Right. So this is the way it works at Pixar. We work on the script and then we storyboard it. Storyboarding is where we kind of draw each panel and then we edit it together and we watch the movie, and it's all done in drawings. And we do that every 3 months. And so on this film, 9 screenings, leading up to the final one. So you're using it as a tool to rewrite.
What are some of the emotions we might see down the road?
Oh my goodness. Well, which ones did we cut?
I'm trying to work
Boy, there's let's see here, a couple of my favorites. I really like this joke with jealousy. Jealousy was in the movie, and I had a joke that I really liked, which was they're identical. Do you know they're identical twins? And nobody can tell the difference between envy and jealousy. Like, which one's great? I don't understand who's who.
That's great.
I always like that joke. I even asked at one point, like, oh, that's a free model, right? It's just duplicating the other one. Can I do that? And they're like, oh, no, it's still going to cost too much. But jealousy was in the movie for a little while.
That's kind of like breaking down the difference between fear and anxiety, which really has me thinking, actually. There's so many things that are special about animation, and one is that it allows you to tell stories like this in a way that just couldn't be done with live action. And to that end, it's opened up this conversation on mental health and people talking about those emotions. What do you think animation is the perfect medium for that?
Well,
No, please.
the director. No, one second.
Tell you how many you think.
Let me make this quick. But I do think with something as complex as the emotional life, the way Pixar is able to literally go inside the head and like bring these emotions to life in such a fun, beautiful way, it's like, I mean, sure you can do that in live action, but it's like you really can get into the detail of that and just the other world of that with a gift.
Especially inside the mind, there's two worlds that we're making here, and they each have their own design and camera language. If we want to get really like nerdy about, it's all thought out. There's so many wonderful filmmakers and artists at the studio, and they're all making choices that are supporting the story. And so the way the outside world is very different from the inside. The inside we always treat like it has like. It's more playful, it's more cartoony, if that's a word, you can push the limits a little bit. Inside the world, you can do more with animation than you can do in live action. I mean, even like anxiety, like I remember Pete talking to Pete, he's like, I wanted to push it inside the mind, but I don't think I went far enough. And he showed me some shots where he's like, I thought this might have been too far for the animation on it, but now looking at it, I wish I would have gone further, so I encourage you to go further with it. Like anxiety, anxiety is, she's a very fast thinker. She's very quick, and she's very smart. And she's constantly like, where could we die? That could be a problem, that could be a problem, this can fall down, how do we stay safe? So she's constantly in fight or flight. So she's very quick. She's the opposite of Ennui. Ennui's like, whatever, I'm just going to sit here. And she moves around a lot. And we're like, what if she just pops around all over the place? And what if she even drops from the top of the frame? We're like, is that too far? But then we did the storyboards, and I thought that's pretty cool. But then we handed out to animation, and this is where I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna work. And it totally worked. You kind of buy it because of the playful world that you can do inside the mind and take advantage of the medium of animation.
Can you let Pete Doctor know he went too far with what he did with Bing Bong? Very upset and traumatized.
Pour one out for Bing Bong.
For each of you, some people I think have this idea that voice acting is somehow easier than regular acting, when I think it is so much harder actually. What was your favorite scene to record, or even if it didn't make it in, but your favorite time, in that booth?
I'll say that I loved recording the moment where Joy says, maybe this is what happens when you grow up. You feel less joy. Because I knew, first of all, that would make everybody feel a really big feeling, like the way it made me feel. But also why I loved it is because it was a great example of how Pixar will bring you there. I mean, that's why I think this is a beautiful piece of art. It will take you to that place, and you kind of have to stay there and feel it. And everyone gets very still, including Joy, who's never still, like anxiety. And the way the scene is played is all the other characters just kind of are quiet. So to me, it was just this beautiful use of restraint. And acting that moment was very powerful, because I do think, we all have really felt this decade. And it had been, a long time between films, and we've all grown up. So we keep growing up, no matter what age we are, and we never quite feel like we're grown. So that scene I thought was really special to play, and I was really hoping it would be in the film.
One thing to talk about that, like the job that you do, like it's that line going in. I think we had a couple of alts on it, and that's what I love about working with you and working with you guys. Like, is actually like it's not just written and like say the line. That we played around with it. It was phrased different ways, and we would work, and I'd be like, I like that a little bit better. And you're like, I like that too. Like, okay, let's change it. What if I tried it like this? We found that line. There was other phrasing with it, and then we eventually you just feel. There's one thing that's on the page, and there's one thing when you hear it. And when you hear it, it's just an undeniable. Like we can feel it. We're like, I felt that. Like that's a good take. Like keep doing lines like that. So that's part of what we do. Is you're almost like writing it and kind of changing it and finding what is hopefully giving you the feelings of the hair raising on your arms. And it's my job as director to go, circle that tape. That's a good one. A lot of that was found with just working with you. That wasn't on the page.
Yeah.
Totally that way. The intent was there, but the actual phrasing that's in the film, that was Amy playing around.
Wow. Tony, I was wondering if you got to work out any of your own fears, like in that booth, because you just started improvising things that
Let's
could
get
go wrong.
into it. Also my therapist. No, it was so. Fear was so fun, but it's also like I started thinking like in my life, just growing up, I dealt with fear with comedy. Like growing up, you kind of if someone bullies you, you kind of to yourself like make a joke like, oh, that was very nice, or you always turn it to kind of almost defend. And so that's fear. He would always kind of undercut something. Like I guess when he was falling from the parachute, he said something like, I don't remember what I said, but it was like just he would kind of say he'd be freaking out, and then he would like undercut it with a joke, and that's kind of how I felt like I dealt my life a lot. Like growing up, like you're so freaking out, but then you just kind of create your humor that way. There was this one joke that I loved that he's in the jar or something, and who's the superhero that with the voice? Blade Runner? Not Blade. Oh yeah, not Blade Runner.
That's Blade.
And it's like, at first he was freaked out by him, and then he heard his voice and he goes, I am 100% out.
Oh my God. Again, that's just Tony messing around. A lot of times it's like, this is what we're going for, and now I'm like, Tony, do whatever you want,
That's kind of thing.
June, I want to point out that the older Riley gets, the more we'll be seeing of nostalgia, I think. But did you have a good time recording her? Do you have some favorite times in the booth?
Well, I love that. I felt I brought her in to the room that we were working in. I mean, I know it was not that that many lines, but I really sort of knew who she was.
Oh, yeah.
And so I just felt they let me do that. And they let me bring her in and give her to them. And that's kind of what I felt I did.
They always cut nostalgia off, but I was curious if you just kept going and some other times.
Yes, I'm sure I do.
Also,
In the next one.
I think it's funny your one's age, because I know when nostalgia came in, I leaned in.
Yeah.
Like, and it's such a young move from a young person to want to not go to nostalgia. It's so interesting. And the older you get, you're like, let's go back. Let's talk about it. So I just loved how those characters interacted with her and how the audience members of various ages interacted with that character too.
I loved in our scene when I come in and her reaction. And I just kept thinking, oh, I'd love to do a live action with her.
That would be fantastic. The 2 years would be great.
Actually, I don't mind saying this because I know you don't mind saying it, but you just celebrated your 95th birthday.
No.
How cool is that?
Yeah. Well, I don't think nostalgia has one.
I have one.
There's probably like the stuffies,
Yes,
for sure.
I've
Yeah,
never
I'm trying to
seen
think of
one.
what.
We're gonna have to get those to you.
Yeah.
But some guy, I forget where it was, he came up with your figure. And he said, there's no nostalgia when you sign Joy. Of course I will. I said yours.
You're gonna be hearing from my lawyers.
Well, again, I want to remind everyone, this is actually streaming on Disney Plus. You don't even have to come out here.
Thank you for coming out.